It began like any ordinary episode of The View: lively chatter, vibrant discussion, and the usual anticipation surrounding a highly awaited guest. As the camera panned to the stage, the audience erupted in applause as Meryl Streep, one of the most revered actresses in Hollywood history, gracefully made her entrance. Dressed in a refined pantsuit and exuding timeless elegance, she waved to the crowd and took her seat beside the panel. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed her with a warm smile, commending her for decades of groundbreaking performances. The mood was light at first, filled with admiration and anecdotes about her storied career.
However,
as the conversation shifted toward Meryl's outspoken activism and her recent remarks during an award show, the tone of the segment began to pivot. Whoopi, known for her no-nonsense style, questioned whether celebrities should use their platforms to engage in divisive political discourse. When you're up there accepting an award, do you think it's fair to use that time to push your personal beliefs on millions of viewers who just came to enjoy the art? She asked pointedly, her tone steady yet provocative. Meryl blinked. Caught off guard, Meryl, always composed, leaned in and replied, "I believe that art reflects society. If we as artists can't speak on what's affecting our world, who will? Silence has never served progress." The audience clapped, but Whoopi remained unswayed. "But don't you think there's a time and place? Not everyone watching agrees with you, and it can come across as condescending to regular folks who feel alienated by Hollywood." Meryl tilted her head and responded, "Is it condescending to stand up for human rights, for justice, for dignity? Because if that's the perception, then maybe the real issue lies in how little we're used to hearing uncomfortable truths." The room grew tenser as Joy Behar tried to steer the topic back to a neutral ground, mentioning Meryl's latest role in an upcoming drama. But Whoopi, still not done, interrupted. "You've criticized leaders and systems on stage before, do? You feel that actually changes anything? Or does it just stir the pot and create backlash?" Meryl sighed, clearly trying to maintain grace. "Change begins with discomfort. If backlash is the price of speaking truth, then so be it." Whoopi raised an eyebrow, signaling the moment wasn't about to cool down. What followed was a sharp exchange that drew audible reactions from the crowd. Whoopi, voice growing more assertive, remarked, "But don't you think there's an arrogance in assuming you know best just because you're famous?" That hit a nerve. Meryl's tone changed. "With all due respect, Whoopi, it's not about knowing best, it's about caring. I've never claimed superiority. I've used my platform to amplify voices that get ignored." Whoopi didn't back down. "But isn't it a little ironic that you speak for the voiceless from Beverly Hills? Doesn't that make your message feel disconnected from the people you claim to support?" Meryl's posture stiffened, reducing years of advocacy. "And work to geography? That's a lazy argument. I don't need to live and struggle to empathize with it." The audience gasped, caught between two icons sparring with sharp intellect. Sunny Hostin tried to interject with a legal angle, attempting to bridge the tension, but it was no use. The spotlight was firmly locked on Meryl and Whoopi, whose energies now collided like two waves in a storm. Even the seasoned co-hosts sensed the line between debate and clash had been crossed. Then came the moment where everything tipped. Whoopi, arms crossed, said, "You know, I've been in this business a long time too. I've seen a lot of actors pretend they're activists. Until the cameras are off." Meryl's eyes widened. "Are you implying I'm insincere?" Her voice was still calm, but now noticeably laced with fire. Whoopi didn't blink. "I'm saying a lot of people talk, but not everyone walks the walk." Meryl leaned forward slowly and said, "That's a bold accusation to make without knowing a person's life beyond what the media shows. I've walked quietly so others could speak loudly." A hush fell across the studio. The silence was cut by Sarah N. softly saying, "Maybe we're getting a bit off track here," but her voice was drowned by the tension in the room. Meryl looked around, her disappointment clear. "I didn't come here to be dissected. I came to have a conversation." Whoopi, unmoved, said, "And this is what conversation looks like when it's real." Meryl stood up. "Then maybe I don't need to be part of this particular one." She began unclipping her mic. The audience gasped as Meryl stepped back from her chair. Joy Behar called out, "Meryl, don't go, we can steer this somewhere else," but it was too late. Meryl had already made up her mind. "I'm not above being challenged," she said firmly, "but I won't be ambushed." Whoopi responded coolly, "This isn't an ambush. It's the View. We ask tough questions." Meryl shook her head, her tone calm but disappointed. There's a difference between a tough question and a loaded one designed to provoke rather than understand. The crew scrambled to cut to a commercial as the camera caught Meryl turning and walking off the stage. With elegance and restraint, Whoopi remained seated, her expression unreadable. The remaining hosts were visibly rattled. Joy awkwardly tried to redirect while Sunny mouthed something to a producer off camera. When the show returned, Whoopi briefly addressed the moment by saying, "Sometimes we disagree. That's okay. That's what this table is for." But viewers at home and in the studio knew they had witnessed something far beyond a simple disagreement. News of the fiery clash spread like wildfire. Within hours, clips of the segment dominated social media. Hashtags like Meryl vs. Whoopi and The View meltdown trended across platforms. Fans took sides, with some praising Whoopi for holding celebrities accountable, while others fiercely defended Meryl for standing her ground with dignity. Major news outlets picked up the story, and entertainment shows ran heated panel discussions dissecting every word exchanged. PR experts weighed in, with some criticizing the show's tone and others defending its right to ask challenging questions. Meanwhile, Meryl remained silent. Her representatives issued a brief statement that read, "Ms. Streep values honest conversation but will not engage in environments that foster hostility over understanding." The View faced backlash from both ends. Longtime viewers criticized the aggressive tone, while others applauded the rawness of the confrontation. What was clear to everyone, however, was that this wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. It had touched a nerve about how we handled dissent, dialogue, and public discourse. In the days that followed, producers of The View were reportedly in damage control. Internal sources suggested tensions had been brewing behind the scenes. For some time, a leaked memo hinted at stricter guest protocols being considered, especially for politically sensitive discussions. Joy Behar, on a separate podcast, tried to downplay the incident, saying, "They're both icons. They'll be fine. Sometimes sparks fly. It makes great TV." But not everyone agreed. Advocacy groups even entered the conversation, suggesting daytime platforms had a responsibility to promote respectful conversation over confrontational spectacle. Meanwhile, Meryl's fan base rallied with unwavering support. Fans created montages of her past activism and philanthropic work to counter claims of hypocrisy. They flooded The View's official pages with comments demanding an apology. Still, Meryl never publicly lashed out. Instead, she re-emerged days later in a virtual panel for women's rights. She addressed the importance of courageous conversations, conducted with respect. Though she didn't mention the show, her meaning was unmistakable. Back at The View, the fallout lingered. Whoopi maintained her usual poise on camera, but reportedly faced pressure from both fans and executives to address the tone of the segment. On the Friday following the incident, she opened the show with a reflective monologue. "I stand by asking tough questions, but I also believe in mutual respect. If something I said felt like more than a question, then I hear that. It wasn't a full apology, but it signaled awareness." Meryl, for her part, never returned to the show, and her absence was noticeable during future Oscar season segments. Producers even considered inviting her back to mend fences, but insiders claimed she declined politely, preferring to move forward. In her next interview with a different outlet, Meryl said, "My energy is better spent building bridges, not defending myself in debates that start from suspicion rather than curiosity." That line was widely quoted and praised, cementing her image as someone who chooses dignity over drama. Despite the tension, the incident sparked a wider cultural conversation. Thought pieces filled opinion columns. Some lauded Whoopi's courage to challenge privilege, while others condemned her tone. Others examined the role of celebrity activism and whether platforms like The View foster genuine dialogue or feed conflict for views. Academic forums even hosted panels exploring the incident as a modern media case study. It wasn't just about Meryl and Whoopi had become a symbol of the larger divide between platforms that seek truth and those that capitalize on spectacle. The View, though momentarily rattled, continued forward, but now with a more conscious approach in guest interactions. And Meryl, unshaken in her mission, continued using her voice where she felt it mattered most off-screen, in advocacy circles and behind closed doors where real change often begins. Her fans followed, emboldened by her example. In the grand narrative of celebrity media clashes, the encounter between Meryl Streep